The suitcase wheels clacked like a countdown timer, cheap plastic on perfect cobblestone, while Marisol Reyes walked away from the only home she'd known for 3 years. She didn't dare look back. Not with those ridiculous yellow cleaning gloves still on her hand, soap foam drying at her wrists like proof of a life she was being forced to leave. 30 minutes earlier, inside a mansion that smelled like leather mahogany and money, Gavin Hart, a billionaire who could move markets with one call, had snapped. His fiancée, Celeste Wynne, sat calm as ice and accused Marisol of stealing her gold watch. Marisol begged him to search her bag, her room, anything. But Gavin was exhausted, impatient, and already poisoned by weeks of Celeste's whispers. He chose the easy math: rich woman equals truth, employee equals suspect. Get out. Now. No goodbye to the kids. No dignity. Just cash tossed at her feet like trash. Marisol took nothing. She only took her battered blue suitcase and stepped into the sunlight until 2 small voices detonated the street. Miss Murray. 5-year-old twins, Eli and Noah, came sprinting straight down the road, faces wrecked with panic, arms wide blind to the danger of an oncoming car. Behind them, Gavin ran tie-loose terror, replacing power, shouting for them to stop. Marisol dropped the suitcase and fell to her knees on the burning pavement, catching them like a mother, catching her whole world. And as the boys clung to her, bleeding from broken glass, Gavin finally saw it. The real treasure wasn't locked in a safe. It was shaking in Marisol's arms, begging her not to leave. Gavin's roar died in his throat the moment he saw the blood. Eli's forearm was split where glass had bitten through fabric. Noah's palms were a mess of tiny cuts, red streaks running over Marisol's yellow gloves. "What did you do to them?" Gavin snapped, stepping in like a wall, yanking Noah's arm without noticing the shards still lodged in his skin. Marisol didn't even defend herself. She just held the boys tighter, voice low and shaking. "Look at their hands. They need a doctor, not a cop." That's when Eli, usually the quiet one, stepped forward with a fierceness that didn't fit his small body. He shoved his father's hand away. "She didn't do anything." "You did." Gavin froze, phone half-raised thumb hovering like it could still call for handcuffs and make this mess disappear. Eli pointed back toward the mansion. Celeste took the watch. "We saw her. We were hiding under your bed." She opened your drawer, grabbed it, and put it in Marisol's beige bag. Noah nodded hard, through tears, sucking at a cut finger. "And she said she's sending us away. To Switzerland. She said we're parasites." The word hit Gavin like a punch. Parasites. Switzerland. The pieces clicked too fast, too ugly. He looked up to the second-floor window and caught Celeste watching, wineglass in hand, bored, as if this were a bad TV show. When she noticed him staring, she didn't rush outside. She didn't call for help. She just closed the heavy curtains. Something inside Gavin broke, and something sharper replaced it. He turned back to Marisol, still kneeling on the asphalt, still pressing cloth to Noah's bleeding palm. "I tried to tell you," she whispered. "You chose her perfume over my truth." Gavin didn't argue. He didn't posture. He just reached down and for the first time saw Marisol the way his sons did not, as staff, but as the woman holding his life together with shaking hands. "Get up," he said quietly. Not a command, an apology in disguise. He scooped Noah into his arms, took Eli's sticky hand, and with his free hand grabbed Marisol's beat-up suitcase like it weighed nothing. On the walk back up that manicured drive, Marisol's voice came out thin, like she was afraid the truth might shatter if she spoke too loud. "She told me at the door," she whispered. "Celeste said once I was gone you'd lose patience. She said you'd sign whatever she put in front of you, papers to send them away. A boarding school in Switzerland. She said she wanted you alone. And your money." Gavin's jaw tightened. He didn't look at Marisol. He looked straight ahead, like a man walking toward a fire he started. Inside the foyer, the marble floors felt colder than the street. He sat the boys on a pristine white sofa. Blood and dirt be damned, and ripped open the first aid kit himself. "This is going to sting," he murmured, dabbing antiseptic onto Noah's palm. Eli watched, stunned, like he'd never seen his father's hands do anything but sign checks. Then heels clicked above them. Slow. Confident. Celeste appeared on the staircase in cream silk wine glass, in hand, smiling like she'd already won. "Look at this," she purred. The help crawled back. Gavin stood between her and the sofa. His voice went low, dangerously calm. "We're going to talk about that watch," he said. "And we're going to talk about Switzerland." Celeste glided down the stairs like she owned the air in the room. Her smile sharpened to a blade. "Go on," she said, tilting her glass toward Marisol. "Check her bag. You'll find your precious watch. These people can't help themselves." Gavin didn't answer. He walked to Marisol's battered blue suitcase and unzipped it slowly, the sound cutting through the foyer's silence. Celeste leaned forward, hungry for the moment Marisol would break. But when the suitcase opened, there was no treasure. Just folded work clothes, a cheap wooden rosary, a framed photo of Marisol's parents, and a worn scrapbook tucked on top like something sacred. Gavin flipped it open, page after page. Eli and Noah's first steps, messy birthdays, sleepy faces on couch cushions, tiny hands gripping Marisol's fingers. Not stolen wealth, stolen time. A love that had been quietly documented while he was out chasing deals. Celeste's expression twitched. "So cute! Now look in the beige bag," she snapped, impatient. Gavin reached into Marisol's plain tote. His fingers closed around cold metal. He pulled out the gold watch and held it up beneath the chandelier's light. Celeste's eyes lit up. "There, I told you, she's a thief!" Gavin didn't look at Marisol. He stared at Celeste long enough for the room to feel smaller. "Funny," he said softly. "Because Eli told me you took it from my drawer and put it right here." Celeste laughed too loud. "You're believing a 5-year-old? Gavin's voice hardened. "I'm believing the bruises on my son's arms. I'm believing the curtains you closed while they bled." He stepped closer, the watch dangling like evidence at a trial. "And I'm done pretending you're family." Celeste's face drained of color, then snapped right back into that polished cruelty, like a mask being glued on. "You're overreacting," she hissed. "They're dramatic." Marisol coached them. "You're embarrassing me." Gavin didn't flinch. He lifted the watch, turned it once in his fingers, then looked past the gold, past the price tag, straight into her eyes. "Embarrassing," he said, voice quiet enough to make it worse. "You watched my sons bleed from a window like it was entertainment." Celeste's grip tightened around her wineglass. "I did it for us," she pleaded, already switching tactics. "They're a burden. Switzerland was discipline, a future." Eli curled closer to Marisol. Noah's bandaged hand trembling in her lap. Gavin's jaw clenched. "My sons are not a burden. They're my life." He stepped forward and Celeste took a step back, heels scraping marble. "You staged a theft. You tried to throw them away. You tried to destroy the only person who's ever made this house feel like home." Celeste's eyes flashed venom. "You'll regret this," she spat. "You'll be alone." Gavin didn't blink. He raised the watch and with one brutal motion hurled it into the stone wall. Metal exploded. Glass shattered. The sound echoed like a verdict. Celeste gasped, horrified, not by the betrayal, but by the loss of something expensive. Gavin turned, pointed to the front door. "Get out." She straightened chin high, reaching for control one last time. Fine, but I'm taking my car. And my ring. Gavin stepped closer and held out his hand. Palm open. The ring. Now. Celeste clutched it, trembling, then ripped it off and threw it at his chest. Gavin caught it without looking. Outside, he repeated, "And if you come near Eli or Noah again, you won't like what happens next." The door slammed. The lock clicked, and for the first time in years, the mansion didn't feel expensive. It felt clean. Gavin stood there, a beat longer forehead against the cold wood, breathing like a man who'd just survived his own mistake. Then he turned toward the only light that mattered. The kitchen. He paused in the doorway, hidden behind the frame, watching Marisol sit with Noah on her lap, and Eli pressed into her shoulder. Bandages. Cartoon Band-Aids. Warm towels. The air smelled like milk antiseptic. And safety. Noah sniffled and whispered Mama Mari like it was the most natural title in the world. Gavin's chest tightened so hard it almost hurt. He stepped in slowly, palms open, voice stripped of authority. Marisol, I don't have enough words. His gaze dropped. What I did to you today, what I let happen, was unforgivable. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a checkbook like it could fix what he broke. Triple your pay. Private health care. Anything you want, just... Please don't leave. The boy's eyes went wide. Eli held his breath. Marisol didn't flinch. She gently pushed the checkbook back across the table. Gavin, she said, steady as a heartbeat. Love doesn't come with a payroll. I stayed because I love them. She looked him dead in the soul. If I stay now, it's not for money. It's for them. Gavin nodded, humbled. Then tell me what you need. Marisol pointed at him. Be here. Not just your money. You. Read the stories, make the pancakes, hold their hands. Gavin swallowed hard, then reached for Eli and Noah like he'd been starving. Deal, he whispered. And that night, the billionaire learned how to whisk eggs, slow, messy, laughing, while his sons finally ate dinner without fear. A year later, that same cobblestone street looked different. Not because the stones changed, but because the fear was gone. The front door opened, and nobody stumbled out with a suitcase. Instead, laughter spilled down the steps. Eli and Noah, now 6 taller, louder, fearless, in the way kids are supposed to be charged toward the family SUV, arguing over who got the window seat. Their knees were scraped from soccer, not from jumping through glass. Their shirts were superheroes, not stiff little uniforms. Real childhood. Finally, Gavin came out behind them with a small beach cooler in one hand and a folding chair in the other. No suit, no tie, just rolled up sleeves and sun on his face like he'd remembered how to live. He clicked the lock, then turned and stopped. Marisol stepped out last. No apron, no yellow gloves, no staff entrance. Just a coral summer dress, and hair down over her shoulders, walking like she belonged there, because she did. Gavin didn't try to make a speech. He just looked at her the way a man looks at someone who pulled him back from the edge. You look beautiful, he said, simple and honest. Marisol smirked. You clean up okay for an aging billionaire. He laughed, really laughed, then reached for her hand. On her ring finger sat a band of gold with a small emerald. Not loud, not flashy, just steady. Like them. Marisol glanced at it, then at the boys already shouting from the back seat. Come on! The ocean won't wait! Gavin squeezed her hand. You taught us how to breathe again, he said. Marisol nodded once, eyes shining. Funny, she whispered. I thought that day was the end of my life. Gavin opened her door, gentle. It was the end of the old one. And as the car pulled away, the mansion behind them finally felt like what it was always supposed to be. A home. And if you're still with me, take a second hit, like subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because this is the part that stays with you long after the credits roll. That night after the beach bags were unpacked, and the boys finally drifted off without a nightlight argument, Gavin stood alone in the quiet kitchen. Not the marble foyer. Not the boardroom. The kitchen. The place that used to feel like the staff's world. He ran his thumb over a faint smear of dried pancake batter on the counter and smiled like it was a trophy. A year ago, he would have ordered someone to scrub it spotless. Now he left it there on purpose, proof that laughter had happened. Proof that he had been present. Marisol walked in barefoot, hair loose, and the two of them listened to the house breathe. No sharp heels, no cold perfume, no fear hiding behind closed curtains. Just the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant, sleepy murmur of Eli and Noah dreaming in the next room. Gavin glanced at the simple emerald ring and then at Marisol's face. I used to think a big house meant I'd given them everything, he said, voice low. But all I gave them was space. Marisol didn't lecture. She just reached for his hand. Space is easy, she whispered. Love takes work, every day. Gavin nodded once, swallowing hard, and looked toward the hallway where his sons slept safe. Then I'll do the work, he said, because money can buy a house, but only love, real, stubborn, imperfect love, can turn it into home. Before we wrap this up, here's the part I hope every one of us, especially those of us who've lived long enough to know what regret feels like, takes to heart. Gavin didn't just fix a problem. He rebuilt a life. The next morning, he did something he hadn't done in years. He drove Eli and Noah to school himself. No chauffeur. No phone glued to his ear. Just two little boys in the back seat. Still a little bruised, still a little scared, and a father finally paying attention to the small stuff that actually matters. Noah handed him a crumpled drawing. Stick figures. A sun. 4 hands joined together. Gavin kept it in his jacket pocket all day like it was a winning stock certificate. And Marisol, she didn't return as the help. She returned with a boundary and with dignity. No more hiding in the shadows. No more eating alone. No more yellow gloves as a badge of lesser worth. Gavin made it clear to everyone in that house Marisol had authority. If she said the boys needed him, business could wait. If she said something felt wrong, he listened. The old Gavin would have called that inconvenient. The new Gavin called it love. Because in the end, Celeste didn't lose because she was outsmarted. She lost because the truth finally had room to speak through 2 brave kids and 1 woman who refused to be bought. So if this story stirred something in you, don't scroll away numb. Call someone. Say the words you keep saving for later. Later is not promised, but love can still be chosen today. One last beat before the screen goes dark because the real ending wasn't the ring, the beach, or even Celeste getting thrown out. The real ending was what happened inside Gavin when the house finally went quiet. A week after everything, he walked into the twins' room at dusk and froze. Eli was lining up toy planes on the rug. Noah was building a blanket fort. Normal kid stuff. But the air felt different, lighter. Like the room had stopped bracing for impact. Gavin sat down on the floor anyway, suit pants and all, and Eli looked up like he still couldn't believe it. You're early, Eli said, suspicious, like this might be a trick. Gavin swallowed. I'm done being late. Noah crawled into his lap without asking. Just trusted him. That simple move hit Gavin harder than any headline. He wrapped his arms around his son and felt the weight of what he almost threw away, 2 little hearts, and the woman who kept them beating steady. Across the hall, Marisol was humming while folding laundry, the same soft sound she used to make when storms rattled the windows and the boys needed a calm anchor. Gavin stood in the doorway and watched her for a long second. I used to think money protected us, he said. Marisol didn't turn around. Money locks doors, she replied. Love keeps them open. That night, Gavin hung a new rule over his life. No contracts, no lawyers, No speeches. Just action. He put his phone in a drawer at 6 p.m. every day. He read the bedtime story every night. He showed up. Because here's the truth, you don't get forever to become the person your family needed yesterday. But if you're still breathing, you still get a chance. On the night the dust finally settled, Gavin and Marisol stood on the upstairs balcony, the same spot where cruelty once hid behind velvet curtains. The air was cool, the yard quiet, the whole world holding its breath. Gavin stared down at the driveway where that battered suitcase had scraped over stone like a warning siren, and he spoke without his usual armor. "I don't want you to be my employee," he said, careful. Like the wrong words could reopen the wound. "I don't want uniforms. I don't want separate tables. I don't want you shrinking in your own home." Marisol's shoulders tensed for a split second. Old fear muscle memory. "Are you firing me again?" she asked, softly, hatefully. Aware of how fast life can flip. Gavin stepped closer, palms open. "No. God, no." His voice cracked. "I'm asking you to be part of this, really part of it. The boys need a guide, and I need someone who will tell me the truth even when it makes me uncomfortable." He looked down, ashamed. "I built an empire and still didn't know my own sons had bruises." Marisol held his gaze steady as a lighthouse. Then she nodded once. "I'll be part of the team," she said. "But I have one more condition." Gavin let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "Name it." "Stop calling me Marisol like I'm a name on a schedule," she said, almost smiling. "It's Marisol Ann. And if we're family, you don't sir me and I don't mister you." He tried the new truth on his tongue. Marisol Ann. She exhaled the tension, leaving her body like a door finally unlocked. "And you," she said, tipping her chin, "are just Gavin." Under the stars, it wasn't a contract. It was a promise spoken plain and finally meant. The next afternoon, the house looked the same from the outside. Tall gates, perfect hedges, quiet wealth. But inside, everything had shifted. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was the kind of change you only notice when you've lived long enough to recognize peace. Gavin woke up before sunrise and didn't reach for his phone. He reached for a small notebook Marisol Ann left on the counter, 2 pages titled Eli and Noah. Allergies. Night fears. The way Noah needed his sandwich cut in triangles. The way Eli calmed down when someone counted slowly with him. Gavin stared at the handwriting and felt the sting again. She had been doing the real work while he was busy buying the illusion of providing. When the boys padded into the kitchen in sock feet, Marisol didn't spring up like staff. She stayed seated, sipping coffee, and the twins climbed into their chairs like it was the most normal thing in the world. Gavin cracked eggs with clumsy focus, and Eli laughed. "Careful, Dad. You're doing it like you're signing papers." Gavin smirked. "Old habits, new rules." Later at the front door, he knelt to tie Noah's shoelaces himself. No rush, no impatience. Noah blinked down at him like he was watching a miracle. "You're really taking us," he whispered. "I'm really taking you," Gavin said, and meant it. As they walked out, Marisol Ann locked the door behind them, not as someone guarding a job, but as someone protecting a family. And for the first time, that mansion didn't feel like a showcase. It felt like a home that had finally learned how to keep its promises. A month after the nightmare, Gavin did something that would have been unthinkable in the old version of him. He invited the staff into the sunlit breakfast room, not to give orders, but to say, "Thank you." Rosa Manuel. Everyone who had watched Marisol Ann get humiliated in silence stood awkwardly at first, like they didn't trust kindness to be real. Gavin held up one small thing, Eli's crumpled drawing from that day. 4 stick figures holding hands. A sun in the corner. "This," he said, tapping the paper, "is what I almost lost, because I judged people by their clothes and believed a smile with expensive perfume." Marisol Ann didn't say "I told you so." She just rested a hand on Noah's shoulder, and the boy leaned into her like gravity. Eli glanced at his dad, then at Marisol, and said it plainly like kids always do. "We're safe now." Gavin nodded, throat tight, because safety was the one thing money couldn't buy him. He had to earn it. Every day. With presence. With listening. With humility. The greatest danger isn't a villain like Celeste. It's the quiet habit of choosing what looks right over what is right. If you're 65 or older, you've seen it career's pride, and keeping appearances can steal years you'll never get back. The fix isn't grand gestures. It's showing up today before later becomes never. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever misjudged someone, or been misjudged, and what did it change in your life? Drop your story in the comments. And if this hit your heart, subscribe, because we tell stories that remind us what matters while we still have time to choose it.